Martio here. Welcome to another Marathon Wednesday. This week we're looking at a band that someone did ask for a little while ago, but I held off because I knew this band had got a new album out and I wanted to listen to the album and fit it into the catalogue. The band we're talking about is Chicago. Formed in 1967 in Chicago, Illinois, a city that I have visited, and they began calling themselves Chicago Transit Authority, but they got themselves into a bit of a squabble with the authorities there because that's the name of the people that run the transport there, so they just shortened it to Chicago in 1969, and it's self-described as a rock and roll band with horns, which is absolutely correct. And it's got combined the elements of jazz, R&B and pop, formed mainly by Peter Cetera and Terry Kath, Robert Lamb, Lee Honghorn, Long Nane, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa and Danny Serpentine. They've had definitely lots of different people. Sadly, Terry Kath tragically died in 1978. Peter took over the singing, and I've had various guitarists come in. Paradisa retired in 2017, so we've got Lamb, Longhorn and Pankow have been the constant members of this band. This is a band that I do like. There are certain periods of the time of Chicago that are my favourites, and you'll discover this on this little voyage we're going to do with Chicago today. 26 studio albums. Now, they always had that thing of naming their albums just simply Chicago 5, 6, 7, 8. But sometimes they didn't. They just did it with all the albums. But some of the studio albums don't comprehend because they had live albums, etc. So I'll try and keep it as simple as possible, and I'll go through who plays in the band at the time because it does get a little bit confusing. So we'll start at number 26 then, and coming in at number 26 is an album called Night and Day Big Band. It's the 18th studio album, and it was released in 1995. It's a little bit of departure from the normal material. It's more big jazz and swing music. So on here we've got Bill Champlin on the keyboards, Bruce Gattish guitar, Trish Ingram drums, Robert Lamb on keyboards and additional vocal arrangements, Lee Longhorn on the trumpet and flugelhorn, James Pankow as ever on the trombone, Walter Paradisa on woodwinds and Jason Sheff on the bass. First track is called Just Chicago. It's okay. It's got that sort of big band feel to it, and it's okay. Then there's a version of Duke Ellington's Caravan. It's not a bad version, I suppose. Then, of course, we've got a track that is quite an old track, and it's been recorded by one or two people. It's Dream, A Little Dream of Me, most famous by the Mamas and Papas, of course. I think that's the best version. I don't like this version at all. Then we got Goody Goody. It's not a bad song. Moonlight Serenade, the Glenn Miller song, and it's too jazzy for me. Too funky. I like how Glenn Miller played it. Night and Day is a Cole Porter composition. I don't like this. I'm not really into this sort of thing. Blues in the Night. I like this. Probably one of the best tracks on the album. Then we get Sing Sing Sing. I like this. It's got a bit of a Latino feel to it. Pretty good. Sophisticated Lady. Certainly not keen on this. It's very dreary for me. In the Mood. Again, they have just mullered this track. I prefer Mud's version than this. Don't Get Around Much Anymore. Not a bad version of this Ellington song. Take a Train. That's alright. Okay, this album is okay in parts. They did ruin some classic tracks though. unfortunately, I don't own this one. I've just had a listen to it, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 2 out of 10. I'm afraid, because it doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't mind rock and roll with horns, but I don't like what they did here. They sort of ruined some of the classics, as I said. So coming in at number 25, we get a 2019, and this is Chicago. It's called Chicago 37 Chicago Christmas. It's actually the 25th studio album, and it's the 4th of the collection of Christmas songs, and the 37th album ever overall. We've got Robert Lamb, Lee Longhorn, James Pankow on here, Keith Howard on guitars, Ray Herriman saxophones, Lou Pardini keyboards, Wilfredo Reyes Jr. on the drums, Neil O'Donnell on lead and backing vocals, Brett Simons on brass, and Ramon Yassas on percussion. It's just a load of Christmas songs. We got Because It's Christmas, All Over the World, Bring My Baby Back, Merry Christmas, I Love You, What the World Needs Is Now Is Love. Absolutely mullered that one, don't like it. All Is Right, Sleigh Ride, not very good. I'll Do It All Again, Christmas Moon, I'm Your Santa Claus, Here We Come a Caroling, Merry Christmas, I Love You, a ballad version. I like Christmas albums, but I don't like what Chicago have done. It doesn't make me feel Christmassy at all. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay, then coming at number 24, we'll get to 2011. And this is, make sure I get this right, Chicago 33. And it is the 22nd studio album released in 2011, and it's just called Oh Christmas Tree. Got Robert Lamb on here, Lee Longhorn, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa, Jason Schiff, Trish Oberman, Keith Howland, Lou Pardini and Drew Hester now on percussion. The first track we get is Wonderful Christmas Time featuring Dolly Parton. No, thank you very much. Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Not very good at all. I Saw Three Ships. I don't know what Chicago did to Christmas songs. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays with Justin Timberlake. No. What Are You Doing New Year's Eve? Certainly not listening to this album. It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. Absolutely mullered that as well. I'll Be Home for Christmas. It's alright. On the Last Night of the Year. Merry Christmas Darling featuring BB Weenas. No. Rocking and Rolling on Christmas Day. Not very good. My Favourite Things. Absolutely mullered. The Julie Andrews from The Sound of Music. Don't know what that's doing on there because it's not Christmassy. Oh Christmas Tree. Not very good. Jingle Bells is terrible. Here Comes Santa, Joy to the World. It's got a children's choir on, which was quite nice. Made me feel a little bit Christmassy. Again, it's better than the other one, but it's still not very good. The only track I really like on here is the one that features the children's choir. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3.5. Okay, then coming in at number 23, we have Chicago 25, the Christmas album, 19th studio album from 1998. Bill Champlin on the organ, Keith Howard on guitars, Trish Ingram on drums, Robert Lamb on lead vocals, Lee Longhorn on the everything brass he lays his hands on, James Pankow playing the trombone and flute, Walter is on the tenor sax, Jason Schiff on the bass. Got Winter Wonderland on this one. I don't mind that version actually. Let It Snow, Let It Snow. It's not too bad. Jolly Old Saint Nicholas. It's alright. Little Drummer Boy is terrible. This Christmas reasonable. Feliz Nevadi. I don't know what that's doing on there. Bethlehem. Okay, the Christmas con. Oh Come All Ye Faithful. No, thank you. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, not too bad. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. It's passable. Sleigh Ride, no. Silent Night, no. What child is this? No. It's Christmas Time is Here, no. God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, it's a bit too jazzy. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I don't mind that. Child's Prayer, Oh Little Candle, and a very bad version of White Christmas. Third instalment of Christmas songs. It's probably the best one of the lot, but I'm not into. As I said, I like my traditional Christmas albums, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3.6. Okay, then coming in at number 22, we have Chicago 35, or it's styled as Now. 14th studio album, released in 2014. This has got Robert Lamb on it, on the keyboards, lead vocals, Lee Longhorn on the trumpet as ever, James Pankow on his trombone, Walter Paradis on his alto saxophone, Jason Sheff on the bass, Tris Imboden on the drums as ever, Keith Howlands on guitars, Lou Pardini on keyboards, and Wilfredo Reyes Jr. on percussion. First track is called Now. Now, I like my brass and horns, but the mixture of this poppy track doesn't really go for me. Then we get More Will Be Revealed. This is my favourite track. I like the guitar on this. It's a real solid song. I like that. America isn't too bad. Some nice harmonies from the band. That's one thing about Chicago. Their harmonies are always good. It's not a bad track. Crazy Happy. The drum beat doesn't fit the rest of the music. Simple as. Free at Last. Don't mind this one. I like the horns on this. I must admit, I do like. I mean, look, James Pankow and Lee Longhorn, Lohane, sorry, are really good on their brass. I like listening to them. Lives On, Love Lives On. One of these ballads on here. I do like the ballads that Chicago have done. They're always good, and I like that one. Something's Coming, I Know. Sort of a funky disco for me, not for me. Watching All the Colours. It's a pleasant enough track, but not personally my cup of tea. Nice Girl. It's got a really good guitar solo on it from Howland, and it sounds very Carlos Santana. Naked in the Garden of Allah. Starts well, some nice guitar work. It just fizzles out. It's trying to be jazz disco, and I don't think jazz and disco really go together. Another trippy way. It's okay, but I wouldn't say it's brilliant. Okay, this album is not too bad actually. It's got some good tracks on it, but I'm not really into this era of Chicago, I'm afraid. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 4 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 21. This is Chicago 25, the Nashville's Sessions 23rd studio album, released in 2013. It was recorded at the Sound Kitchen between tour stops. The Nashville Sessions is a collection of new recordings of classic Chicago hits. So Robert Lamb keyboards, lead backing vocals, Lee Loughnane on the trumpet, James Pankow on trombone, Walter Paradis on the woodwinds, Jason Sheff on bass, Tris Imboden on drums, Keith Howland on guitars. Sorry if I've got these names wrong. So we've got 25, 6 to 4. It's not a bad version. Make Me Smile. Yeah, they're all good songs. Feeling Stronger Every Day, Beginning, Saturday in the Park. It's pretty cool on here. Colour My World. Does anybody really want to know what time it is? From the very first album. Not a bad version. Questions 67 and 68. Again from the debut. Old Days. Just You and Me. Call on Me. Another Rainy Day in New York City. Tell No Tell Lover, I've Been Searching So Long, and Alive Again. Okay, it's just their hits brought to date. I don't mind this. It's all right, but honestly, some of the tracks should be just left alone, as I were. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 4.5. Okay, then coming in number 20. Now this is an album that's got quite a history with it. It goes down as Chicago 32. It's the 21st album, and it's often referred to as their lost album. This was recorded in 1993 and should have come out as the Stones of Sisyphus. I'll put it there. You go. That's what it's supposed to say. I'm terrible on pronunciations. In 1994 as their 18th album. However, the album was unexpectedly and controversially rejected by the record company, which reported contributed to Chicago's later decision to leave their services entirely. You don't, you put an album out and they don't put it out. So, even after the band acquired the rights to the over-the-care catalogue, the album remained unreleased until 2008, and it came out of a delay of 14 years and 10 albums later. What a history for an album. But I totally agree with what they did. Okay, we want to put this out, you don't, we're going, bye. And then they got the rights to them and then put it out. So Robert Lamb, Walter Parazadida, can never pronounce his name, Lee Longhane, Lufnane, James Pankow, Bill Champlin, Jason Sheff, Dwayne Bailey, and Tris Oberden on drums. First track is Stone of Sisyphus, if I pronounce it right. Reminds me of what Phil Collins was doing. I quite like that. Bigger Than Elvis, quite like this one. It's a good Chicago ballad. Excellent stuff. All the Years, it's quite quirky. I like the guitar pieces in this. It's not a bad tune. Mahjong, oh dear, not my thing. It's not very good at all. Sleeping in the Middle of the Bed. Interesting vocals on this. It's all right. Let's Take a Lifetime. I quite like this track. Best one on the album. I love the saxophone on this. Quite a nice song. The pull, nothing wrong with it. The sax is good, quite good. And it's got some nice guitar work. Here With Me, A Candle in the Dark, pleasant enough. And then this is one of my favourite tracks on the album. Probably the best one, in all honesty, called Played. Some really nice guitar, some great drumming in. The muted trumpet on this is absolutely wonderful. It's Lee on the trumpet. It sounds absolutely love it. I love muted trumpet. Sounds really good. Cry for the Lost. It's all right. The Show Must Go On. A little bit of plastic poppy, brassy thing that doesn't really do anything for me. It's the last track on the album. Again, this album's got a lot of stuff that I don't like, but it has got stuff I like. Sounds good. I mean, as a whole album, the production on it's great, but the tracks on it I don't like. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 19, we have Chicago 18, which is the 15th album released in 1986, and it's the first without co-founding member Peter Cetera. So this was also the first album to feature Jason Sheff on the bass and vocals. So we got Bill Champlin, Robert Lamb, Lee Longhane, James Pankow, Walter on the woodwinds, Jason bass, Danny Sarapine on drums. Niagara Falls, not a bad track. It's just typical 80s AOR. There's nothing wrong with it. Forever. Too much 80s keyboards, not enough horns. That's all I put on my notes. Give me a few more horns and I wouldn't have minded that, but it's just that 80s horrible naff keyboard sound. If she would have been faithful, a little bit better, plenty of horns on this, solid track. Then we get another version of 25 or 6/4. This is the worst. They just put this horrible 80s drum beat on and it just totally killed it. Will You Still Love Me? It's not a bad song, don't mind that one. Over and over. The production on it is just true 80s for me. You know, you don't need to do things like that with Chicago. Then it's alright. It's okay. Free Fright is a little 25 seconds thing that goes into no, nothing's going to stop us now. Oh, even Chicago had to dive into 80s production. It just doesn't suit them. I Believe we got that horrible 80s keyboard on it again. It's a good track, ruined by 80s production. One More Day, same as this, same as everything else. Good track, ruined by 80s production. Very 80s album, I'm afraid. Why I just don't understand. Even Chicago succumbed to the sound. I've come to the conclusion though it's just called the record companies trying to get hits. An RTO ranking of 5.5 for that one. Okay then, coming in at number 18 we have Chicago 19, which is the 16th album released in 1988. So this one is Bill Champlin, Robert Lamb, Lee Lufnane, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa, Jason Schiff, Danny Serapine and Dwayne Bailey. First track on here is called Hearts in Pieces. Unfortunately it's more of that 1980s claptrap. I just don't like it. I Don't Want to Live Without You. It's a good ballad. I'm going to say that I think Chicago, when it comes to ballads, I think they are kings of ballads, and I like that track. I Stand Up. They remembered that they're a band that originates with horns and trumpets and trombones, and even though it's 80s, they've got more brass on it. Excellent. We Can Last Forever, another good ballad. Like that one. Coming from the Night, more 80s claptrap. Look Away, 80s keyboards. Get rid of the keyboard, bring in the horns. So cheesy. What Kind of Man I Would Be. That's okay. It's got some nice guitar work on this one. Really good. Then we get Run Around. Even though it's got this 80s feel, I think it's decent because it's got some nice guitar work on it. You're Not Alone. Like the arrangement, the production on it is just a little bit overpowering. And Victorious is nothing special. A mixed bag album here. There's some reasonable good stuff on, but a lot of it's very dated. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.6. I do need a cup of coffee now. Okay then, coming in at number 17, we have the 17th album, studio album that is, and it's called 21, released in 1991. It's Dwayne Bailey on guitars, Bill Champlin on keyboards, Trish Imboden on drums, Robert Lamb on keyboards and vocals as ever and brass arrangements, Lee Lufnane, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa and Jason Schiff. If anyone says in the comments I've got their names wrong, I do apologise. First track on here is Explain It to My Heart, a pleasant enough song, but I wouldn't go overboard on that one. If It Were You, I love the guitars on this. It sounds very much like a classic sounding Chicago track. Don't mind that one. You Come to My Senses, just a typical Chicago ballad, very pleasant. Somebody Somewhere. The start of this is unlike, it's got some acoustic and electric guitar working together. Really is good, and then it goes into this Bob Standard sort of Chicago sound for the time. What Does It Take? Not keen on this one. It's a ballad, but it's very lacklustre ballad. One from the Heart, another track I like. This is old day style Chicago, quite a good track, my favourite on the album. Chasing the Wind, some horrible cheesy keyboards. Ditch the keyboard, put in the brass. Then we get God Save the Queen. This is quite good fun in places, not a bad track. Or Man to Woman, a really good Chicago ballad, some great guitar work on that. Really like that one. Only Time Can Heal the Wounded, another ballad. There are so many ballads on this album. See, that's pretty good. Why Do You Love? They're trying to get back to that old sound on this. Lots of guitars, but the keyboard's overriding the horns, but the actual structure is very old style. Holding a On, great ballad with an awful keyboards in it. It's an okay album, too many ballads on this one. I like Chicago ballads, but not this many. And some of the ballads are really cheesy, which is unusual for Chicago. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 5.8. Okay, then coming in at number 16, we've got the 14th album, Chicago 17, released in 1984. And it was their last album with bassist and vocalist Peter Cetera. So it's Peter Cetera on lead and backing vocals and bass guitar, Phil Champlin on the keyboards, Robert Lamb on the keyboards and vocals, Lee on the trumpet, James on the trombone, Walter on woodwinds. Guitars this time are done by Chris Pinnock and Danny is on the drums. First track on here is Stay the Night, 80s sounding drums, keyboards, Does Nothing For Me. We Can Stop the Hurting. I like the bass, but I don't like the keyboard bass. It doesn't suit this band at all. Hard Habit to Break. It's not too bad. I like the horns on this. Some great horns on this one. Only You. The only thing that really spoils this is the production on the drums. Now, Danny was a great drummer, but they've smoothed him out. Stop it. The horns sound really good on this though. Remember the Feeling. One of the great ballads from Chicago. I really like this track. The guitar work is good. Along Comes a Woman. Oh dear. That horrible 80s crappy bass line. What's on a synth? What's wrong with Peter Cetera's bass guitar? Stop it. Your Inspiration. Not a bad track, big hit for them. Well, in America it was. I do like that track though. Please Hold On. 2 80s for me. Prima Donna. The guitar sound great, but then we get that 80s nonsense that really gets up my nose. Once in a Lifetime again, more of that 80s nonsense. Not a very good album really. It's a shame because too much keyboard, not enough horns again. so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, then coming at number 15, we're going to 1982 now, and Chicago 16, the 13th album. On here we've got Peter Cetera, Bill Champlin, Robert Lamb, Lee Longname, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa and Danny Serapine, all fine. First track, What You're Missing, a really good track. I love the opening keyboard on this. It's nice keyboard, some great rock guitars on this, very solid track. Waiting for You to Decide, again this has got potential, but the keyboards spoil it. Just keep it to the horns. Have a bit of background keyboard, but the horns are the most important thing for this band, and it didn't work. Bad Advice, this has got a bit of Stevie Wonder's Superstitious feel to it. A really good track. Love the horns on this. Great stuff. Chains, again, ditch the keyboards, put the horns in. Would have been a very good track. Then we get Hard to Say I'm Sorry, Get Away. Now, I think this is one of the best ballads that Chicago ever did. The vocal from Peter is fantastic, and it's got a great solo on it as well. Absolutely belting solo on this. That's a really good song. Like that one a lot. Follow Me, some great guitar riffs on this. The keyboards actually sound pretty good on that as well. Sunny Think Twice. Now, this was the B-side to Hard to Say I'm Sorry. I didn't like it then, and guess what? I still don't like it. It's not a very good track. What Can I Say? One of these lacklustre songs. It just needs a little bit more oomph. Rescue You, a song that's very much 80s, bad drum production, bad keyboard, bad everything. And the last track, I Love Me Tomorrow. I love this track. It's just got some nice horns on it. Again, it's certainly an album from the 80s, but again, the keyboards were more important than the brass. But some of the songs are really good, and he just included one of my favourite songs by the band. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.9. Okay then, coming in at number 14 we have Chicago 38, Born for This Moment. It's the 26th, the most current album. It's released on the 15th of July of this year. And it's got some changes in people as well. So the band lineup for this was Robert Lamb on the keyboards, Neil Donnell on vocals, Walt Frodo Reyes Jr. on the drums, Raymond Ray Yalis on percussion, Ray Herman on woodwind, Lee Longhane on trumpet, James Pankow on trombone, Tony Aborta on lead vocals and backing vocals, Lauren Gold keyboards, and Eric Baines on the bass. First track on this is the title track. Starts off well. It's got a nice bass line. I remember I did review this in July. It is the best track on the album. It just sounds very much like the original band. They're really getting back into the groove. If this is a goodbye. Now, I didn't think much of it when I first heard this. And I've been listening to it, and I said it's lacking something. It still lacks something, but it's a tune that I've grown to like. Firecracker. Again, I think this is a good track now. I thought it was upbeat when it came out, but I really do like this track now. Someone Needed Me the Most. It's got some nice guitar in it. It still sounds like a soap opera from the 1980s though. Our New York Time. Again, I do like this track. It's grown on me. but it still needs something to give it some oomph. Safer Harbours, really like this song now. Again, one of my favourites on here. It's got that lovely sound of Chicago. Crazy Idea. Now, when I first said that, I didn't like the idea of mixing the horns with Indian and Asian. Yeah, I still don't like it. It just doesn't work. Make a Man Out of Me, stepping back into a 1970s cop show. This is what I said in July. It's alright. I like it a little bit more than I did in July. She's Right. I said the funky brassy stuff. I've changed my mind on this. I quite like this now. The harmonies are really good. The Mermaid, don't mind this one either. It's always liked it. It's got a Latino style to me. You've Got to Believe In. Sounds like a Billy Ocean song, and it still does. For the Love, it's still as dreary, and it still needs a kick of its Jacksy, as I put in the notes from July. If This Isn't Love, very soulful. And I've changed my mind on this as well. Now I've listened to it more. It doesn't sound too bad. House on the Hill, it still lacks something. Now, since I reviewed this, I think I got it a bit wrong. Now I've listened to it more. It's not their best album, as I said back in July, but it's certainly better than some of the other stuff. And they are sort of starting to sound like classic Chicago. There's some tracks that still are a little bit lacklustre. It sits here, and I don't think it'll get any higher, in all honesty. But I must admit, I have changed my mind a bit on this now. I've got used to it. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 13, we've got Chicago 30, the 22nd studio album, released in 2006. It's the first album of entirely new material since 21 in 1991. So we've got Robert Lamb, Lee on the trumpets, James on his trombone, Walter is on his saxophones and flutes, Bill still on the keyboards and Hammond, Jason Sheff on the bass and vocals, Trish Imboden on the drums, and Keith Howlanders on the guitars. Now this is called, the first track is called Feel, and in brackets, Hot Single Mix. It's got a catchy percussion and it's not too bad. I don't mind that track at all. King of the Might Have Been, another great ballad, some great guitar work on this. Super track. Caroline, like this track. It's nothing to do with the quote track, of course. It's got some nice harmonies from the band, and the trumpet playing by Lee is fantastic on here. Great stuff. Then we get Why Can't It Be, another solid ballad from Chicago. Love Will Come Back featuring Rascal Flatts. This isn't really good at all. Probably one of the worst tracks I've ever heard from Chicago. Long Lost Friends, solid arrangement. Great harmonies in this. Solid track. 90 Degrees and Freezing. It's okay. Not a particular favourite of mine. Where Were You? Quite good. Enjoy the guitar work on this. Then we get Already Gone, a really upbeat song. I love the horns in this. It's got that right mixture of horns and guitars, and it's a great vocal from Jason. I really like this track. Then we get Come To Me Do, one of the weaker tracks, not for me. Love Chains, bit of a filler as again. Better, not a bad track again. And then we get Phil, the horn section mix. This is a great version. It's more horns on this. It's really, really good. Good way to end the album. I would say this album is probably my favourite from the 2000s by Chicago. It's got a lot of that older sound on it, and that's what I like. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.4. Okay, then coming in at number 12. We've got the 10th album, Hot Streets, released in 1978. This marked the new era of the band turning into disco movement. And it's the first album not to feature Terry Kath. He was replaced by Donnie Dacus. So it's Peter Cetera, Donnie Dacus on guitars, Laudia Delivrier on percussion, Robert Lamb, Lee Loughnane, James Pankow, Walter Paradis and Donny Serpentine. Alive Again, a little bit too disco for me. The Greatest Love on Earth. I like this track. Now, the reason I like it, it's got a lot of horns. Now, when I was listening to this, I used to love a TV show over here called Hustle, about the con artists. And at the end of the cons, I used to play this bit of music with lots of horns and brass. And I used to love that music. And it's very similar to that, and that's probably why I like it. It's got that feel to it. Little Miss Lovin', featuring the Bee Gees. And it really is good. I like it. Fantastic little track that is. Hot Streets. The horns sound good. And it's got a disco sound to it. And this one actually works. I don't mind that one. Take a Chance. Too disco-y. Just didn't work. Then we got Gone Long Gone, a really good track, my favourite on the album. It's got some great guitar work in this. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Ain't It Time, quite a rocky track, and the horns work well with it as well. I like that, solid. Love Was New, it's a listenable track, I've got no problems with that one. No Tell Lover, it's not very good at all. Bit flat. Show Me the Way, another good track. Some great hawks, some great sound on the horns. Good way to end the album. It's not a bad album. It's a little bit too disco for me in places, but the ones I like on it are really good. It's a fun album. And I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay then, coming in at number 11. We've got the 11th album, released in 1979, Chicago 13. And it would be the last album that featured Donnie Dacus. So the lineup on this was Peter Cetera on the bass and backing vocals, Donnie Dacus on guitars, Lauda Delivrier on percussion, Robert Lamb, Lee Loughnane, James Pankow, Walter Paradis and Donny Serpentine on drums. Street Player, love this. Brilliant stuff from James and Lee on the horns. Terrific stuff, they work well together. Mama Take, I like this. Very good vocal from Peter. Must Have Been Crazy. Now this is one of my favourite tracks by Chicago. It's got that sort of rock and roll feel to it, just added in with that extra horns sound by the band. Great track. Window Dreaming, I love this track again. The horns are really upbeat. Some great drumming from Danny on this. Super little track. Paradise Alley, catchy beat. The horns are amazing on this. Hello Mama, not a great track. Reruns, some nice guitar work on it. Great vocal from Peter. Loser with a Broken Heart, love this track. One of the great ballads from Peter. Excellent track. Life Is What It Is, again, bit mediocre. Runaway, another of those tracks that's really got some great riffs and horns. Guitar work on this is pretty good. It's a great way to end the album. I think this is a really solid album. It's got some really good tracks, and I do like this one a lot. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay then, coming in at number 10, we have the 12th album from 1980, Chicago 14. It was the last one they recorded for Columbia Records, and it was the last one to feature Claudia de Oliveira on the percussion. So on here we've got Peter Cetera, Claudia Oliveira on percussion, Robert Lamb keyboards, Lee Longnane on trumpet, James Pankow, Walter Paradisa, Danny Serpine on drums, Ian Underwood keyboards, David Walensky on keyboards, Mark Goldberg on guitars, and Chris Pinnock on guitars. First track is called Manipulation. I love the start to this. It's got a really strong drum, solid stuff from Danny on that one. Next track, Upon Arrival, nice song, lovely harmonies in this one, quite a good song. Song for You, nice gentle one here with some really nice acoustic guitar on this. Solo's pretty good on that one as well. Where Did the Loving Go? Like this one, a great guitar solo and a decent vocal here from Peter. Love that track. Birthday Boy, great track. Lots of good solos on this album. Hold On, my favourite track on this album. I love the guitar riffs in this. The horns sound really good on this. Strong track. Overnight Cafe, another good track. Some great guitar work on this one as well. Then we get Thunder and Lightning, probably the weakest track on the album. It's a bit of a filler. I'd Rather Be Rich, another filler track. It just lacks the density of the first 7 tracks. The American Dream, really upbeat track. Great horns on this one. This is probably the strongest album post Terry Kath. I like this album quite a lot, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.8. Okay then, coming in at number 9, we have the 8th album, Chicago 10, released in 1976. Peter Cetera, Claudia de Oliveira, Terry Kath on guitars and backing vocals and lead. Robert, Lee, James, Walter and Danny. Once or Twice. This is a great rocker. Great vocal from Terry. The guitar work on this is fab. Really like that track. You're On My Mind. One of the weaker tracks on here. It's not particularly a favourite of mine. Skin Tight, solid track. Like the guitar work on that. Coming next, the classic, If You Leave Me Now. Great vocal, great song, one of their best. Together Again, love the horns on this, brilliant track, great drumming, solid. Another Rainy Day in New York. This one's a little bit different, and it's got a bit of a reggae beat with horns, a little bit of steel drum in there as well. Can't go wrong, great track. Mama Mama, bit funky for me, but I do like the horns in this, and the strings work well on that one as well. Scrapbook, love the guitar work from Terry on this. Quite funky guitar work and some nice piano from Mr. Lamb. Gently I'll Wake You, love the piano work from Robert Lamb on this one, terrific. You Get It Up, interesting. Another track that sounds sort of Stevie Wonder thing, bongos, horns, really good upbeat. Then Hope for Love, more of the gentler tracks on here, Some great stuff from Terry. Like the arrangement. Solid album from Chicago. Got some great tracks on there. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Time for another drink. Okay, then coming in at number 8, we go to the 5th album, Chicago 6. Yeah, just getting the Roman euros. From 1973, so this is Peter Cetera, Terry Kath, Robert Lamb, Lee Longhorn, James Pankow, Walter Parozit and Danny. The classic lineup of Chicago. First one is Critics' Choice. Love the piano work on this. Really good track. Just You and Me. I love this. It's a really nice track. Gentle drums and horns. So that aggressive, great sound. You've got this gentler sound of the horns. Really good. Darling Dear. My favourite track on here. It's a very rock bluesy track with horns. Some great guitar work from Terry. Great track. Jenny. Not a good track for me. I don't like that one. What's the World Coming To? This is a great track. Horns on this are brilliant. Something in the City Changes People. I like the piano and the bongos on this. Really works well. Excellent track. Hollywood, solid track. It's not too bad. In the Terms of Two, solid stuff. The harmonica's nice. The guitars are really great. Great vocal from Peter. He sings this one. Rediscovery. It's got a really bluesy feel to it. The guitar from Terry is brilliant. Feeling Stronger Every Day. It's got that mixture of keyboards and horns. Really works well. Great track. Another solid album. The Terry Kath era is very consistent for me. It is my favourite era. Like most people, I think. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.3. Okay, then coming in at number 7, we do have Chicago 7. It's the 6th album, recorded in 1974. And this is a double album. And it has got Peter Cetera on it. So we know who it is. It's the classic lineup of Chicago. So, side 1, Prelude to Air. Now this is a little bit different. It's got some bongos in it and some flute, and it works well. Then we've got Airy. This is an instrumental. I really love this. It's got some really jazzy guitar from Terry. Excellent track. Devil's Sweet. This is a proper jazz fusion track here. Great playing from Terry. Great guitarist was Terry Kath. And side 2, in Italian from New York, another instrumental. Incredible guitar playing from Terry Kath. Solid drumming from Danny. Then we get Hanky Panky. This is instrumental, very short piece, and it's a showpiece for Lee on his trumpet. Absolutely amazing. What a trumpet player. Lifesaver. First track, we've got a little bit of singing on it. It's a jazzy rock number. I do like it. Happy Man. Lots of bongos. Really works. Great vocal from Peter on this. We get side 3. I've Been Searching So Long. Another of those nice Chicago the ballads. The harmonies are brilliant. Then we got a track called Mongolisis. This shows what great musicians this band had at the time. The drumming and the bass are just tight as you like. The horns sound great. Great track. Songs of the Evergreens. I think it's a little bit too long. It goes round in circles towards the end. It needs to end very short, but it just goes round and round. Then we get my favourite track, which is Biblos. It's got a Latino feel to it. The bongos, the guitar work from Terry, and the vocal is absolutely amazing from Terry. I love that track. Wishing You Were Here, side 4. When you've got a band like this, that's got 3 or 4 good singers, and they sing together well, and the harmonies are brilliant. I love that track. Call on Me, bit of a filler track on here that they were really struggling. Women Don't Want to Love Me, it's okay. Skinny Boy, really like this track, love the horn section on this. Of all the double albums that Chicago did release, I think this is my least favourite. Although it's a good album. I love the instrumentals on here, but some of the songs towards the end of the album are a little bit scratching around for ideas. But on the whole, the musicianship on this album is terrific. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.4. Okay, then coming in number 6. Got Chicago 11, released in 1997, the 9th studio album. This was sadly the last album to feature Terry Kath prior to his death in a gun accident just over 4 months later. So it's the classic lineup of Chicago: Robert, Terry, Peter, James, Walter, Lee and Danny. And this is Laudia comes in on this one. First track on here, not just my favourite track on the album, it's just one of the best tracks I ever did. Mississippi Delta City Blues. The guitar on it, blows you away. The horns just fit into this bluesy sound. What a track. Baby, what a big surprise. Lovely vocal here, and the flute just adds to it from Walter. What a great flute. Till the End of Time, it's got a lovely blues feel to it. The horns just sound brilliant. I love blues and horns. Great trumpet from Lee. Policeman, not one of my favourites. Take Me Back to Chicago, I think this is one of the lamest tracks on here in the Terry Cavaliers. It's not very good at all. Vote for Me, some funkiness in it. The horns sound fantastic. Great guitar work from Terry. Take It on Uptown. Love the start of this guitar work from Terry. Is out the top drawer, and it's quite heavy for Chicago. This time, Danny's drums are great on this, and the horns come in. Great. The Inner Struggles of Man, really dramatic instrumental. The strings and the piano, really good. Prelude, Little One. That's the prelude to Little One. Very short piece that goes into the next track. Very nice vocal from Terry. Then we get Little One. Love Lee's trumpet on this. There's just something about his trumpet playing. As I said, Terry Kath's last album, but what a way to go out. Great album to sign off with. And I'd say this is probably the last great album. And I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Coming in at number 5 then, we got the third album. It's called Chicago 3. It's a double album released in 1971. So we have got the classic lineup: Peter, Terry, Robert, Lee, James, Walter and Danny. Sing Me a Mean Tune, Kid. Proper jazzy blues stuff. We've got horns, we've got saxophone, we've got everything on this. Great track. Loneliness Is Just a Word. Great vocal from Terry. Great track all round. Very short track but good. What else can I say? Great vocal from Peter. Some great guitar work backed up from Terry. I Don't Want Your Money. What I like about this track, it sounds like it's recorded in the 50s. The guitar solo is great. Great track from Chicago. Then we get the Travel Suite. That takes up side 2. Split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pieces. First bit is Flight 602. Love the bass in here from Peter. Harmless, great guitar work. Motorboat to Mars, which is a drum solo from Danny. It's only about a minute and a half long, but this is a great solo. Free Country. This is a favourite piece of this suite. I just love the guitars. It's got some ferociousness and gentleness in the same time, and some great harmonies. At the Sunrise, nice piano, some great flute from Walter. Great stuff. And then the last bit is called Happy 'Cause I'm Going Home. I think they could have ended with this piece a lot better, but it doesn't take it away. It's a really good little track. Side 3, we got Mother. My favourite track on this track. I love the electric piano. It's just a great track. Low Down. Again, it's a very solid track. Love the guitar work and horns work well together on this. Then we get another of these little epics. It's called An Hour in the Shower. Starts off with a thing called Hard Rising Morning Sun Without Breakfast. Nice acoustic guitars on this one. Off to Work. It's a very speeded up version of the first part. Some great sax on this, really good. Falling Out. Now we go back to the acoustic sounding. The guitars and horns really work well. Dreaming Home, lovely harmonies in this piece. These guys sound brilliant singing together. Morning Blues again, and the songs come full circle, and I like the horn section in that. Really good little track that is. Then we get side 4, which is taken up by one track called Elegy. Again split up. We've got When All the Laughter Dies in Sorrow. This is a spoken bit done by Robert Lamb, setting the scene. Then we get Canon. This starts off with a fanfare of horns. Then we get Once Upon a Time. Love the drums and flute working together. It's interesting arrangement, but it's good. And a little bit of bass from Peter. Progress, you get all the horns coming back in. It's a bit all over the place. Not the best bit of the song. The Approaching Storm. This is a very jazzy piece. Love Terry's guitar. Then we get Man vs. Man. This is very progressive rock. The horns work well, some great drumming. Great way to end the album. A really good album. What I like about this one is it's that plain progressive rock with horns instead of lots of keyboards. I think this is one of the best albums Lee and James played on. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, then coming at number 4, just got Chicago. And as usual, haven't put down the date. So it's their second album, and they changed the name from Chicago Transit Authority because of the threatened lawsuit from the operator of Chicago. So it's the classic lineup. On here, the first track is Moving In. Love this track. The horns and the piano really work well together. The Road. I think this is what makes this band quite unique. Great rock track with the horns. Poem for the People. The combination here of James, Lee and Walter are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Then Danny's drums really do add to it. Great little track. In the Country, my favourite track on here. Lovely horn section, working well with Terry's great guitar work. Wake Up, Sunshine, solid track. Then we get Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan. Again, one of these little epics. Split up into 3 or 4 pieces. We got Make Me Smile, solid start. Say Too Much, So Much to Give. Very short piece. It's got some nice harmonies. Then Anxiety's Moment, very short. Continuing on. West Virginia Fantasies, still nice. And then we got Colour My World, which is my favourite section of this song. Lovely piano work from Robert. And then we got a short burst of rock, and then it ends up with More Than Ever. It's not too bad. Great little track. Then we get Fancy Colours. Love the arrangement of this. This is a fusion between jazz and Caribbean. I love the fusion in this. Then we get my favourite track of all time by Chicago. It's the brilliant 25 or 6/4. I love that. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. The horns come in. Brilliant track. Love this track to death. Then we get Memories of Love, another of these long tracks that split, but it's not long, it's a split up. We get Prelude, a lovely piece of flute to start off this. AM Morning, lots of brass, a little bit of fun in here. Nice clarinet on this one. PM Morning, a little bit disjointed, nice trumpet from Lee. Memories of Love, I like the flute on this, nice vocal. More great trumpet from Lee. Then we get side 4. It's a better end soon. First movement is lovely guitar work, some lovely Hammond organ from Robert. Second movement, this is just a great duo between Pete on the bass and Walter on the flute. Lovely piece. Third movement is very much like second movement, but we got Terry Kath joining in on his guitar. Fourth movement is a really good guitar work from Terry. Great little track that is. Then we get a track called Where Do We Go From Here. Love Robert's piano introduction on this. It's a great vocal as well. Like that song. It always amazed me how Chicago started off with double albums. Very brave thing to do, but it's an excellent album. I love this album to death. I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.8. Okay, then coming in at number 3, we had a 1972. It was the first single album that they released, and it's Chicago 5. Classic lineup again. So we've got a hit by VIII. Interesting track. I like the duo between Walter on the saxophone and Lee on the trumpet. Very, very good. All Is Well. It's got a phenomenal bass line on this from Peter. The horn section as good as ever, and it's some great drumming from Danny. Now That You've Gone, I think this is a strong vocal from Terry, and the rest of the guys do some lovely harmonies. We've got Walter and Danny working well together here. The sax is great. Very bold, some brilliant drumming from Danny. Dialogue Part 1, probably my least favourite, the track on here. This is Dialogue, doesn't really do anything. Then Dialogue Part 2, it's just a continuation of Dialogue Part 1, but it's a little better. It's got a nice bit of beat to it, and some guitar solos pretty good. While the City Sleeps, that jazzy blues sound that I love so much. That's probably why I like this early era of Chicago, because there's a lot of blues. I mean, I've seen blues and this sort of sound in Chicago, and it is very rich and deep in their history. Saturday in the Park, my favourite track on this album. I love Robert's piano on this at the beginning. Some lovely flute again on here. Very solid track. State of the Union, another interesting jazzy bluesy track. Solid as ever. Goodbye. Some great drumming here from Danny. Really, you can tell his roots are in jazz. He plays brilliant on this, like he does the whole album. Alma Mater, one of the great ballads from Chicago. Great vocal from Terry. A really solid album from top to bottom. I love how they mix the jazz and the blues and rock together very well on this. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 2. Maybe a shock for some people, but this is the debut album in 1969, Chicago Transit Authority. Classic lineup again. Introduction, What I like about this shows all the musicians off in little pieces. This is hello, we're Chicago. Does anybody really want to know what time it is? I love Robert's piano on this. Sounds very 30s, 40s. The whole thing is great. Sound goes back to the old days of Chicago and the gangsters. Great vocal from Terry. Like that. Beginnings. A track that really shows off the harmonies of this band. Some great percussion here from Damini. And the horns sound fab. Then we get another favourite of my tracks. Question 67 and 68. Jazzy guitar from Terry. Brilliant stuff. Listen, Peter's bass line drives this song along. Got this fusion of horns and guitar. Blues jazz again, really good. Poem 58, my favourite track on here. The bass line is terrific. Danny's drumming on this is just sublime. Really strong track. Then we get Free Form Guitar, probably one of the worst tracks on the album. It's just noises. And South Californian Purples. Great. The guitar is very haunting. The Hammond organ is so rich. Really good. I'm a Man, another great line from Peter. Interesting percussion from Danny. This just proves what a great rhythm section that this band had. Pretty awesome. Love the timing on these early albums. And the great guitar work from Terry. Prologue, 29th of August 1968. Can't see the point of this, it's a political speech. Sunday, 29th of August 1968. It's okay. Then we get Liberation Panko. Some of the bits of this a little bit disjointed. It's a total jazz fest. Very brave to bring your debut album out as a double album. It's got some really good stuff on here. But there are lots of bits on here I just can't listen to. Especially side 4. It's a bit... doesn't fit the rest of the album, I don't think. But it's still a great album. And I'll give this an RTO ranking of 9.4. So my favourite album, my number one album from Chicago, is from 1975, and it is Chicago VIII, the 7th album. That classic lineup on here. Opens up with Any Way You Want. This is fabulous. It's got that 12-bar blues boogie feel to it. Absolutely brilliant track, and it's the horns that make this. Then we get Brand New Love Affair. What I like about this, they tried to create a sort of early 50s sound, or that crooner sound, and it works. Great vocal. Yeah, the vocals are really good. Never Been in Love Before. Great arrangement. This is pretty awesome. Vocals and the harmonies are so good on this, and love Robert's piano work. Then we get my favourite track on here. It's called Hideaway. Oh, this is one of the heaviest tracks I think Chicago ever did. It's got some really strong guitar works, riffs on this. But what I like about this, it shows they can play rock music as well as jazzy blues. Till We Meet Again, a very nice and little acoustic piece with a great vocal from Terry. I love that track. Harry Truman, such a catchy tune. Great piano from Robert, and I love the trumpet from Lee on this. Fantastic. Oh Thank You, Great Spirit, another great track. Terry's vocals are brilliant on this, as long as his guitar work. Long Time No See. Funky guitars from Terry this time, and it just dominates the track. Ain't It Blue. This is so laid back, you're full laying down playing it. Great words, great solid track. Old Eyes. This track starts off with a real heavy rock sound, some nice drumming, And it just goes in. It's just a great track to end the album. This album, I think, is everything what Chicago was like in the beginning. This is the definitive album. The great blend of rock, jazz, and blues. Some quirky songs. I just love this album. It's got some of Terry's best guitar work they ever did with Chicago, and this is why it's my favourite. It's the complete album in my eyes for Chicago, and I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 9.5. Well, that was a long one, wasn't it, folks? But when you have 26 albums, it takes a little while to go through them. As you can see, I am a huge fan of the Terry Kath era of Chicago. Well, that's all for today, folks, as it's a big one. We'll be back tomorrow, and we've got a great battle of the debuts. Two neo-progressive bands from 1983, Marillion and IQ. Both had good, strong debut albums. One went on to be phenomenal. The other just had a cult following, and they're still good today. So I'm looking forward to that. And tomorrow we've got a great album artwork. We're starting to wrap up this show, and this album artwork tomorrow is some of the best you'll ever see. It's by a band called Blind Guardian, and it was a tough one because all their artwork is fabulous. And also tomorrow, 8 PM GMT, is the live stream. So have a good day, everyone, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.